Hello, and welcome to this week's uh, edition of the Lifeway Social Insider coaching video. My name's Chris. I run this thing called Lifeway Social. If you're seeing this video, chances are you have a good idea of what Lifeway Social is. This week, I want to talk about a topic I posted a blog post about on the Lifeway Social blog earlier this week. The blog is entitled Three Things a Blog Is Not. So kind of getting meta, talking about blogging on the blog, but that's kind of normal for us. Since we're talking about since we're talking about social media and blogging and content strategy all the time. But this week I ran a post about what blogging is not, and then this coming week I hope to run a blog post about what blogging is or how to rightly see blogging. When I've coached people through Lifeway Social or before Lifeway Social became a thing, when I was coaching people before that, I came across just a lot of misunderstandings of what blogging is or what it isn't, or what its purpose should be. All these different just kind of misunderstandings about what blogging is or isn't or should or shouldn't be. And so I wanted to address a few of those in the video this week, and in the blog post I wrote earlier this week. If you read it, cool. If not, that's fine too. So here are three things a blog isn't. And I've learned these look, I've been blogging since I was in like 8th grade, which back then it was not worth reading. Still might not be worth reading depending on who you ask. Back then I was just kind of goofing around, and but I blogged all through high school and college, and now I kind of do it for a living in part at least. So here's what I've learned. Three things a blog is not. Number one, it's not your own little vehicle to fame and fortune, especially for us as Christians. But I think that's sound advice for anyone starting a blog. I've been studying YouTube a lot. Now I've become a fan of a lot of YouTubers' content, but I've also been studying it just as more of a science, I guess, or almost like kind of academically studying YouTube. And a big conversation in the YouTube community right now is about how it's harder than ever to like make a career on YouTube, and that's true because they're kind of curtailing their ads so much, and there's been so much controversy. But if it's hard to make a living on YouTube, it's even harder to make a living on a blog, like starting a blog. Eventually, if you get big enough, you can have people advertise and things like that. On a personal note, like I'll just give you some insight into my situation. Like I've blogged personally for a long time. I'm kind of on break right now because I've been doing so much work blogging. But when I blogged personally in the past, I've usually been able to make enough money from advertisements or things like that to kind of pay to keep the blog going, and maybe have, a date night on top of that. Now, look, I have friends who make livings off of their blogs. I do have friends who do that, a couple. Some friends, maybe make a family vacation out of it, or, once every couple years they'll have enough money set aside from their blog or things like that. But 98% of people I know who have a blog, it costs them money to have a blog. They're not making money off of it. They're not getting famous off of it. They're not getting speaking engagements. And so you should know that a blog is not your own little vehicle to fame and fortune. You may make a little bit of money. You may just kind of recoup your costs. You may even get a speaking engagement here and there. But as I think any benefit, monetary or otherwise, that you get from a blog, you should just kind of see as a bonus or something like that, like a kind of nice little gift. You should not rely on a blog to kind of make a living for you right now, unless you've got some tricks up your sleeve and can really distinguish yourself like a lot of other people can't. Most of the people I know who make a living off of their blog have been blogging since long before they could make a living off of their blog, and they're just now making a living. So don't feel like you can start a blog tomorrow and feed your family. So that's just point one. Point two, and a blog is not an endeavor for the lazy or the lighthearted. So if the first point was about how you're not going to get famous or rich, this one is that a blog is hard work. Recently, I've been coaching a lot of people who are both who have been blogging for a long time, but then also some people who are just kind of now getting into the blogging thing. And one of the most common obstacles I run into is that people just don't think it's worth the work. It's not worth the time to them. And hey, look, I completely understand. There's no hard feelings. It doesn't offend me, doesn't hurt me. That's okay if you decide blogging is not worth it. What frustrates me is when people want thousands of page views a month or a day, and they're only willing to write once a week or something like that, and they're just simply not willing to put in the time. And so what you need to know if you're new to blogging, or you're unsure, or you're thinking about starting, or whatever, wherever you're at, is that a blog is not for lazy people or lighthearted people. It's hard work. Sometimes you get criticized a lot. I've gotten criticized a lot. Some of that I've brought on myself. Anyone who runs a blog consistently will tell you there's more criticism than there is praise. And so you got to have a little bit of thick skin. And you also have to know that it's a long, hard slog. It's not rainbows and butterflies all the time, and it's not easy. Hopefully it gets easy. It's gotten easier for me. I can crank out a 500-word blog post on something I'm familiar with in 30 minutes, no problem, if that. But that doesn't mean it's always easy. And so that's point number 2. Point number 3, final point. The third thing a blog is a place for you to drag people through the mud. Now, from time to time, depending on your space, you may decide that it's important for you to call someone out, or you might decide it's important for you to address a controversial issue. Those are all fair game. I think what's important to know is that a blog is not your little soapbox to criticize people. As Christians, as followers of Christ, we should, in my opinion, be more positive in our engagements online with people than negative and critical. There's a time to be critical. There's a time to call people out, especially like in your church setting. If there are people who are like living in rampant sin and you're their brother or sister in Christ in their local church, you need to call them out. I generally think social media is an unhelpful place to build a persona where you're calling people out. Again, there's going to be times where you need to call people out from time to time about their conduct online, or I don't know, various things. But it's not a place to just slam people. Unfortunately, in the Christian space, there are these people called watch bloggers, which is kind of like the term given to them. And their entire online presence is predicated on calling people out. And they might be very nice people and they might have good intentions, but a lot of times, no matter what they might be like or what their intentions are, they just kind of come across as jerks just because of how they present themselves. And so I think it's important to know that a blog is not primarily meant to be used to kind of drag people through the mud in hopes of making yourself seem cooler or better or something like that. So the little kind of line, the joke I had for that point is that too many Christian bloggers go into maybe starting a blog like that wanting to be like Woodward and Bernstein, who broke the Watergate situation with Richard Nixon, and they end up looking more like Statler and Waldorf, the critical, goofy guys who are in The Muppets. And I think that's sometimes the case, and I've been there before too. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.